Hello, my name is Stan. Let me tell you a story. It was just about 20 years ago, after a very successful career as a broadcaster, international broadcaster, BBC, Radio Netherlands, Trans World Radio, teacher, consultant all around the world. It was a dreary day in Minnesota, cold, dark. It had been a very difficult day for me. I'd been on the phone calling people, trying to get a job. My wife came home. She'd gotten a job. And just as we were finishing up the dinner dishes, I was going back and trying to make some plans for the next day. And as she finished the dinner dishes, all of a sudden, she took the dish towel that she had in her hand, she threw it down and said, "This is exactly what I was hoping for when I married you 20 years ago. This is exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping that after 20 years of marriage, we would have no house, no car, no job, no money, broke, and a kid in college. This is exactly what I was hoping for when I married you." And then she broke down and her crying turned to sobs, and she ran out of the apartment. As I tell you that story, I still feel some of the pain that actually was in my heart and spirit that day. That's where I was. I was 45 years of age, and no house, no car, no job, no money, broke, and a kid in college, looking for a job. Then I was looking for work. You see, I know what it's like to be there. Well, I went back and I've learned a lot of lessons. You see, first of all, I've learned that I'm going to have to take full responsibility for my own success. I'm going to have to be able to think of myself as self-employed. And most importantly, if I'm going to be successful today, I'm going to have to learn how to market myself. And that's what this program is all about. How to market you and market your business with the new media, with the power of what you're experiencing right now, the new media of digital, podcasting, webcasting, maybe Facebook, maybe Twitter, maybe Flickr, we don't know. But that incredible digital media which is challenging the world with www, World Wide Web. You can be any place, anywhere, just as I'm coming to you right now, wherever you are. Now, why do I tell you that story? Well, let me tell you something. If you want something significant to happen in a relationship, particularly a sales relationship, nothing will happen until you trade stories. See, you have to learn how to trust me. You've got to figure out, what's this guy all about? And when I tell you my story, you begin to know me. You begin to understand me. In fact, there's a good chance that many of you have similar stories. And what's going to happen to make something really good happen is we're going to trade stories. That's important. So in this program called Youre, the new media and marketing you, lesson number 1 is nothing happens until you exchange or trade stories. You got that? Keep that in mind. Nothing happens until stories are told. Okay. Number 2. And I'm going to call these the big 3 of performance marketing. You see, all of marketing is theater now. All of marketing is a show. All of marketing is a stage. And we're going to talk about how we're going to market you. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret that can change your world. And that is right here. I want you to understand that everybody you meet, every prospect, everybody you come in contact with is wearing a secret sign. That's right. You may not see it. It's invisible, but it's a secret sign. And if you want to be successful in sales and marketing, you need to know that you need to read and pay attention to the sign. And so, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you what is on that secret sign. There it is. That's right. Please tell me I'm important. Please tell me I'm important. Talk about me. Now, are you beginning to see that some of the things that we have been taught about sales and marketing and the way many people are using the new media is wrong? And of course, the best way for me to illustrate that is to tell you a story. Now, thank goodness my dear wife Karen and I survived that difficult time almost 20 years ago. We've done very well. Hopefully, we'll live happily ever after. But let's go back some 40 years ago when I first met her. When I first started to date this cute young blonde from Cambridge, Minnesota, full Swedish, I met her. I've been introduced to her. Now let's go back to that day and let me show you how the way most of you have been taught to sell and how most of us should start a relationship, start a date. Let's assume that I pick Karen up at the dormitory at the University of Minnesota and I take her to a little Italian restaurant. It's one of our favorite places. We sit down and I look at her and say, Karen, I'd like to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about me. That's right. Let's talk about me and what I do and where I work and, help you to understand what I'm all about. Now, those of you who are in sales and marketing, that's exactly what you do. Remember that sales pitch? I'd like to get together and tell you a little bit about my story, tell you a little bit about what I do, show you and demonstrate. In effect, you're saying, I'm going to talk about me and my company and my product and my service. Well, I can imagine that my date wouldn't have gone too well if I had done that, would it? Okay, let's assume that I had survived that catastrophe. And let's assume now that I have taken her back to the dormitory and I'm walking her up to the dormitory and take her up there and I say, Karen, this has been a lovely evening. I've really enjoyed my time. Karen, you know that I do like girls. Perhaps there's some other girls in the dormitory that you can suggest that I call on. I'm asking for what? That's right, I'm asking for a referral. And many of you are laughing out loud. You're saying, how could you be so dumb? Well, let me tell you, most of you are selling and marketing just as stupidly as I would have performed on that date. And that's why your results aren't very good. Karen, me, the CEO of every company, everybody you meet is wearing this sign. Please tell me I'm important. Please talk about me. Please make sure you understand me. The great Earl Nightingale said, and I remember that I was on a treadmill trying to overcome some of my pain and keep my weight down, and I was listening to that first audio of programs. And Earl Nightingale said, let me tell you, the secret of success is very simple. Treat every person you meet as the most important person in the world. Think about that. The cabbie, the receptionist, the person at the hotel, the wait person. Treat every person you meet as if they were the most important person in the world. Why don't you start doing that today? I think you will find the results are amazing. Now, in your sales and marketing, do this. And as you're thinking about how you're going to use the new media, how can you make sure that you don't just get caught up in the technology and all the tactics and all the stuff? Can you really do this? Can you let people know that they are important? Please tell me I'm important. Rule number 2. Big rule number 3. What do you, having a cup of coffee in a Lexus have to do with marketing you? What does having a cup of coffee in a Lexus have to do with marketing you? Unless you understand that, you are not ready to market and sell in the 21st century. Let me tell you how that works. Well, as I said, my wife and I, we did survive that. Thank goodness, thank God, I am deeply grateful and deeply graced. And I also learned that one of the things I wanted to be is what you want to be, because people are going to market you. I wanted to be, let me get it right here, one of the three. That's right. I keep this in my desk, on my wall all the time. My room is full of threes. You see, what I've discovered is that only 3% of the population, that's right, only 3% of the population have the purpose, the power, the poise, the goal setting, and the direction to truly know what they want out of life and to get what they want. And so part of what you need to do is to become so focused, so full of goals, ambition, seeking ways to serve others that you are truly one of the 3% who know who they are, where they're going, what they do, and how they can serve others. Be one of the three. Well, one day I was writing down my goals, and one of the goals I wrote, because let me tell you, I had a crummy old car. That kind of car, I've been there. You park it 3 blocks away so that the client or customer won't see it. And so I wrote down one day, I'd like to have a fine motor car. I'd like to have a Lexus. Well, you know what? If you know what you want, you just might get it. And I had a friend who I had helped. He became a used car buyer. And one day he called me and said, Stan, you know, I'm standing over here in the cold of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And I'm at the auto auction. And there is a Lexus here, a beautiful Lexus. It's only 3 years old. Has a few 30,000, 40,000 miles on it. I can get it for the price of a Ford. Do you want it? If you know what you want, you just might get it. So guess what? I got a Lexus. That was wonderful. Still is. I'm still driving it. Well, you know, about a year after I was driving it, my wife said to me, Stan, the turn signal on the Lexus is out. I said, oh, okay. Why don't you wait, and next week I'll go down to Napa or Pep Boys or some auto supply place, and I'll buy a little turn signal light, and I'll put it in. Right. They're only a couple bucks. Karen said, I want it replaced now. I don't want to wait for the weekend. I said, well, I'm busy. I'm going to take it into the dealer. I'm going to take it to the Lexus dealer. I said, oh, okay. Well, you know what happened when she went to the Lexus dealer? She was met by a very nice young man, well-dressed. Image is important. In fact, it's the first thing. He looked in, had read the service record that he had seen from the license plate pull-up, saw this woman and said, welcome to the Lexus experience, Mrs. Houston. Wow. Remember the sign? He called her by name. Remember the old Cheers bar? They know your name and they're really glad you came. She explained what she wanted. And he said, we can handle that in no time at all, Mrs. Houston. By the way, would you like a cup of Starbucks coffee? Chocolate chip cookie? A copy of the USA Today or the Wall Street Journal? Oh, she says, that would be nice. And she walks away, and then perfectly as if it were choreographed, because it was, he goes to her and says, Mrs. Houston, would you like me to wash the car just for you? And of course my wife says, that would be nice. Well, 20 minutes later, the light is taken care of. That little light bulb at Napa or Pep Boys or whatever, $2 or $3. My wife got a bill for $87.50. She loved it. Now you may think she was ripped off, but she loved it. You see, Lexus and Starbucks have discovered it's not about the product you sell, it's not about the service you provide, it's the experience that people have. My good friend Joe Pine and his partner Jim Gilmore have written a book published by Harvard Business School. It's now into 10 years of publication called The Experience Economy, Work is Theater, and Every Business a Stage. And that's true. It is show business. And the people, Starbucks discovered you can take a $2 a pound commodity and you turn it into a $4 a cup experience. The people of Lexus are not selling an automobile. They are selling an experience. There you go. So rule number 3 in good marketing is you have to create a great experience. Now, Stan, you're saying, what does this have to do with the new media? Well, before you use the new media, that technology, understand those 3 things. First of all, you have to tell stories. Number 2, people are wearing the secret sign. Read it, pay attention to it. And number 3, you have to understand that to market you have to create a Lexus Starbucks experience. That's the big 3. Now, there are 7 principles that follow, and we'll talk about that next. Hi. In the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, I'm back. And welcome back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention to our show. I am profoundly grateful. Now we've understood that before we get involved in any of that new media stuff, that we need to make sure those big 3 principles are a part of our marketing strategy. Now, let me just give you a little more detail, kind of, 7 points that'll help you make sure that you can implement these principles with power, with precision, with high impact. You see, today, your marketing, it has to stand out. You have to be different than anybody else. Everybody else has the same message. It's the same coffee. It's the same car. It's the same commodity. And you have to decommodify yourself. And that's what we help you do when you learn how to market you. And then you leverage that with this powerful stuff called the new media, the digital internet media, in which you don't just have webinars and you don't just have that other stuff that you have there. You don't just use your Facebook or whatever. You understand that you provide wisdom, insight. You create a great experience for the people you want to reach out and touch. And talking about touching people, principle number 1 that kind of flows out of this is trust is vital. That's right. Today, I received 90% of my emails were from people I don't know and don't trust. You know what? They're liars, they're scammers, they're spammers. They've come into my life without permission. And I know they're not telling the truth. We think of the Madoff situation, all of the scandals that are out there. Let me tell you, my friend, nothing will happen today unless people trust you. And I don't care how cute you are, how clever you are, or what kind of show you can put on. What is really important is that you become a person of value, that people trust you. And you use your marketing as a way of building trust. Because nothing happens unless people trust you. As I used to say in my broadcast days, or particularly in my late night broadcasting around the world, just let that sit on your head for a while. Think about it. Are you a person of value? Are you a person that people trust? Make sure they do before you get involved in marketing you. Well, principle number 2 flows out of the great principle that we've talked about before in terms of detail. I was challenged a number of years ago, particularly when I was overseas, by a woman who came to me and said, Stan, you know what? The master teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, he came into the world and he told stories and he asked questions. So what do? We preach sermons and give answers. And you know what? She's right. And it's not just preachers who do that. Politicians do it. Salesmen do it. Consultants do it. Parents do it. We all come into the world and we're going to give them the answer. We're going to preach a sermon, give an illustration, hand them a brochure. Maybe we should be telling stories and asking questions. So, I was well into storytelling. And now more and more we're discovering that storytelling is important in marketing. And so I used to say this, well, one of the best ways you can market and sell yourself or the products there is to tell a good story. Then I changed my mind and I became even more convinced and I said, you know what? Telling a story is probably the most effective way to sell and market yourself and your business. I no longer believe that. Let me tell you what I believe. Storytelling is the only effective means of communication. People will not buy because you've educated them. People will buy because they've been energized, because they trust you, because your story has met their story. If you want to just simply let people have some information, fine, you can teach and train them. But if you want to change their behavior, if you want to affect what they do, storytelling is the only effective means of communication. In fact, what I've been doing most of this time is telling you stories. By the way, that's where the new media can be incredibly powerful. If you're not just telling stuff about your stuff to them, if you're telling stories that relate to them and connect to them and help them. That's right. Storytelling is the only effective means of communication. And think about this. The story not only needs to be read, the story needs to be heard. That's right. Heard. Podcasts, webcasts. People hear and experience the story. Again, think about that. And here it goes. I'm sorry. Here we have a piece of paper, a flyer, a brochure. I walk into offices every day and find hundreds of flyers. I get hundreds of advertisements. I oftentimes tell the story that right after this program, a gentleman came up to me and he said, Stan, oh my gosh, I wish I had heard this program a year ago. Do you know, Stan, that last year to market my business, I spent over $40,000 for a quarter-page ad in a business regional news magazine. $40,000. And I said, well, how did it work? He said, Stan, I didn't get one phone call. Not one phone call. Not one client. Not one new customer. And as I said, dead tree marketing is dead. That's right. This is the experience economy. Don't make a mistake in believing that handing people a dead tree, a pretty dead tree, a glossy dead tree, a four-color dead tree, it's still a dead tree. And you know what? Increasingly, print and dead trees are dying because the new and powerful electronic performance media are taking over. And that's vital for you to know. Dead tree marketing is dead. Number 4. Not only is dead tree marketing dead because of number 4. Don't describe what you do, demonstrate how good you are. That's why it doesn't work. all of those brochures, all of those papers, they're lists of things that you can do, or features, or whatever you call benefits. But that's not good enough anymore. You have to create an experience in which you not only describe what you do, much more importantly, demonstrate how good you are. Find a way, using the media, using the videos, using whatever, to demonstrate how good you are. I oftentimes say if you want to be a good marketer, you have to have several DWI convictions. That's right, DWI, for goodness sake, not driving while intoxicated, but demonstrated wisdom and insight. DWI, demonstrated wisdom and insight. People say, you're good. You really understand this. You're good at what you do. And the new media are perfect ways to rule number 4 and make it rule your life and your business. Demonstrate how good you are. I could send you a brochure about how I can teach you marketing, but hopefully if I'm doing this program right, you're discovering that, hey, this guy might be pretty good. Here's my book. You make the difference. It's a guide on how to market yourself. You know what? It's a nice book. It's a good book. It's a dead tree. You can't get me into a book. You can't take me and my energy and my personality and my hopes and dreams and convictions and get it into a book or a brochure or a flyer. You have to demonstrate how good you are. How might you do that? Think about that. Next, make them smile. You know what? We need more fun in our world. I oftentimes said to one client in the midst of these difficult financial times, why don't you just play some 1950s rock and roll music in your office? You know why? Because it makes people smile. It was fun music. We need to make people smile. Now I'm going to challenge you. Next time you see a commercial or an advertisement that you really like, quickly notice your face. You're smiling. That's right. Unless marketing makes you smile, makes you kind of have a little twitter of a recognition, a little connection to you, kind of delight to you, it doesn't work. Now some people say scare them. You know, that'll work in maybe the short term. But if you truly want to connect with people, they have to find you a source of fun and amusement. I simply have one client in the financial services, and instead of talking about all that financial stuff, he has a newsletter, Dead Tree, complemented with a video program that is powerful, funny, entertaining, and oftentimes it just tells people funny jokes. What he's doing is both in his newsletter and in his attached video program, and you see how they can go together, people smile. And whenever you meet my friend Paul and you say to him, how are you? He says, I'm happy. And that makes people smile. You know, and then he says, are you happy? There you are, a conversation. So your marketing must make people smile. And when they hear your story, and when they begin to connect with what you do and begin to experience the wisdom and the insight and the goodness and how you can change their life, you see, all good marketing is about change. People will only buy what you have if it does 3 things for them. First of all, they have to believe. They have to understand that perhaps it can make them a little bit better off. It'll change their situation. Number 2, it'll make and save them some money. And number 3, it'll make them happy. Now, they may not be able to do all of those things, and sometimes people are lying when they say that, but people part with their money only when they understand that 1 or 2 or all 3 of those things might happen. So, in effect, what you have to do is get them to the point where they begin to understand that, and they look up and say, that would be nice. That would be nice. You know, like my wife said, that would be nice. after they experience you and your media message, somewhere in their psyche, they're saying, that would be nice. That's what your marketing has to do. That's what your show has to do. And in effect, if you put on a good show, they'll recommend you to others. They'll tell other people, you ought to see the show. You ought to go down and work with so-and-so. And by the way, think about it. Every good referral, and by the way, don't use that word anymore. Here's a coaching tip for you. You don't want referrals, you want recommendations. And when someone has been very pleased with the performance you've given, the experience they've had, and they say, thank you, you say, thank you. I love working with people like you. I would be grateful if you would recommend me to others. By the way, try that again. By the way, that word grateful is one of the most powerful words in the English language. I would be grateful if you'd recommend me to others. Well, there's a lot more. There's all about the technology. There's all about some of the tools you can use. And by the way, there's all kinds of tactics that we can teach you about. How to do a 60-second commercial that doesn't suck. How to create a Super Bowl commercial for your website. How to use podcasting, webcasting, blogs, all of that stuff, and then decide whether LinkedIn and whether Twitter and any of that stuff works. And by the way, it may not work for you. There's ways to figure out how to do that. And we can help you do that. But you see, that's part of principle number 7. Leave them wanting more. If I've done this program right, you'd like to learn more. If I haven't done it right, you're glad it's done. But there's a whole lot more than you can make all of these good things happen. And so, leave them wanting more is number 7 in the details. Trust is vital. Storytelling is the only effective means of communication. Dead tree marketing is dead. You got that? Demonstrate how good you are. Make them smile. That would be nice. Leave them wanting more.